Hi, you're live with Lady Charmaine, and I'm your host, Lady Charmaine, the Lady Charmaine Live Show. And today I have a very special guest on the show for you today that you definitely don't want to miss. So what I want you to do right now, I want you all to like and share, tell your friends. Also, we're going to be posting comments. So if you have something that you want to say, definitely post your comment. But I have to introduce my today's guest because I'm so excited. My guest today is the founder and chief creative officer of Undeniable Films. She comes with a very impressive resume, and I got to run down a few things that I am so sure that you're familiar with. And when you think of ABC, Shark Tank, you might think about her. How about Celebrity Family Feud, Dancing with the Stars, Extreme Home Makeover Franchise? How about Think Like a Man? Also, Little Big Shots. And when you think about Think Like a Man, let's think about the Think Like a Man, the series. She has worked with Steve Harvey. She has done some great things. And we're going to be talking about her career, and you don't want to miss it. Help me welcome my friend, Miss Donna-Marie Reid. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Lady Charmaine. How are you? Hello,
I,
everyone.
it is so good to have you on the show. Now, it's been like 3 years since I've seen
Yeah,
you, and just how God just really connected the both of us just three
yeah,
years ago was really amazing. But I just love your resume. I'm just so impressed by it because when we met, I didn't know anything that you did.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, anything that you did. And so, first off, how have you been faring through COVID?
Well, I tell you, I've been just really staying out. Like, I have not gone out much. I need to get out a little bit more, actually. Just even getting out and just taking a walk around the block. But I haven't been getting out much. I'm grateful to be able to work from home and, keep things alive there. But it's been interesting, seeing the turn that entertainment is making and the
Mhm.
pivot that we're all having to make during this time. So it's been interesting digging in and kind of figuring out the new normal.
So, how did you pivot during COVID?
Well, what I did was stop down,
Mm,
because
I have this hair on my face. Sorry. There we go.
that's okay. Yeah, I stopped down because we were in a time that none of us were used to. None of us had ever, even like our grandparents, had ever faced a pandemic quite like this. We didn't know how to wrap our heads around it. It hit so rapidly, though we were hearing like whispers. Who can actually wrap their head around what was actually
Mhm,
coming?
mhm,
And so, jobs shutting down, entertainment shutting down, shows going dark, getting canceled or being put
mhm.
on hold. And so, it was hard. It was hard for a lot of us creatives and still hard. And so, what I did was kind of sheltered in place, started working from home immediately instead of an office. And to be honest, I got lost into the virtual world.
Mhm.
And it started with D Nice. A friend of mine sent me a link and she was like, "Hey, get in here." And I was like, "What is this?" She was like, "I don't know. Lonnie sent me, just get in here." And I went in there. I think it was day 3 of club quarantine. And he had
Mhm.
like maybe 3,000 people in there and was hoping to get up to 5. And then I was there all the way until he got to 100,000. And what that community allowed me to do was escape from what was going on because the
Mhm.
news was so tragic. Then you started, hearing about the attack on Black men in America,
Mhm.
and then the
Mhm.
movement of Black Lives Matter reigniting,
Right.
and then I Can't Breathe. And so it was so dark that I needed the music. I needed something to kind of balance it out. And so by paying attention to D Nice, I started seeing how other businesses that were brick and mortars that had gone out kind of, resurrected their businesses within that community because it's
Mhm.
very supportive. And some had even started doing better than they had prior to the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so I started paying attention to that. And then that's when the idea of like developing in this space came to mind.
Mm. Okay, so speaking of developing, because you know what, you are truly Black girl magic. I had Satara on last week, but just to hear and talk to Black women in Hollywood and the things that you have done, and we know that the shows that you've touched have been so successful. As we know, Shark Tank, it's definitely still around, and you, of course, have worked with people like Steve Harvey. and you work with him and you created shows with Steve Harvey. Before we get there, though, I want to talk about your career. Did you have a love for
Yeah.
entertainment? Did you just so happen to get into it? Did you go to college for it? How did
Yeah.
your career in entertainment start?
Well, it wasn't, how a lot of people's careers started. They
Mm-hmm.
grew up and they were watching TV and they didn't see people that looked like them. And so
Mm-hmm.
that, made them say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Right.
see people, you
Right.
know. It wasn't really the catalyst for me. I didn't watch TV and see it through that lens. I actually was in search of like whole families because my
Mm-hmm.
mom was a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't see color necessarily. I saw families. So I would watch shows like Good Times, and James
Mm-hmm.
Evans was my father,
Mm-hmm.
and like when he would defend the family and step up for the family and
Mm-hmm.
feed them and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of that, like I would get lost in that world and really want that. Same thing for what is it, the Waltons? Michael Landon, that was another father of mine. I just loved
Right.
how he led his family and nurtured and took care of them. So I long for things like that. But it was when I was a teenager. Also, my mom, though, my mom was the one that was like into the entertainment and all of that. And she knew a lot of musical groups, and
Mm-hmm.
I would hang out in the scene and we would see her on TV from time to time. And so I guess that passed off to me. But it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
until my teens I was kind of like lost and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And my mom gave me an article, this newspaper article, and it was a local agency looking for talent. And they were auditioning them. And I went. And then that was just like the start of everything.
So, what kind of talent were they looking for? Were they looking for actors, models, or all of the above?
Well, actually, I'm sure you've heard of the Bovanti, I'm sorry, the Bronner Brothers International Beauty
Mm-hmm.
Show that happens,
Absolutely. Uh huh.
you know? So they were looking for talent, they were looking for hair models. And and I remember like Janet Jackson was hot at the time. And so I was going
Mm-hmm.
to do some talent. I was going to do like pleasure principal routine. I wasn't for them messing with my hair. I didn't want them to
Right.
cut it up, chop it up, put all these crazy colors and stuff in it. So I said, let me do me a little routine. And I was all confident about mine. And then I went in and there was a talent auditioning before me. And she, had her little routine
Mm-hmm.
too. And it ended up being AJ Johnson, who was just like, this amazing choreographer and actress. She was in Baby Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And she choreographed a lot of things, including In Living Color, the Fly Girls, and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. So seeing her on stage doing her thing, like my confidence just kind of like sank. But I said, you know what? Let me just go in and just give it everything I've got. And apparently they liked what they saw, so they added me to the roster. And I did the Bronner Brothers show for 3 years straight after that. Didn't stay with
Mm.
the agency too long after that. I kind of went independent on
Okay.
my own and started working with a modeling troupe, and then started producing my own outside of that.
So, where did your first big break come from? Because everybody have that big break that get their foot right in that door. What was
Yeah.
yours?
I'll fast forward to when I realized, because I started out in front of the camera. So, and,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm from Atlanta. So when I had pretty much tapped out that local market and became like the big fish, if you will, in a small pond, I knew it was time for me to move to LA and pursue things out here where I am now. And so I was figuring out like how do I get on? I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
relationships. I don't know anybody. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
done any work out there. And so how am I going to break in? How am I going to set myself apart from all these other people who give up everything like I'm giving up to
Right.
come out? I'm leaving my mom, my family, everyone
Mm-hmm.
behind.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God my husband came with me and was in full support, but it was still just us. And
Right.
so long story short, I got in through being very strategic. And I said, how can I position myself to where I would be in the company of real players that can help?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I did to support myself in Atlanta as an actress was I waited tables. So I said, let me figure out a spot where I can wait tables where all the players are and we can get to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
on an intimate level, and then go from there.
Right.
And so that's what I did. I ended up waiting tables at the W Hotel
Mm-hmm.
in Westwood. And when I tell you all the relationships I have in Hollywood now, a lot of them came there. I met Steve Harvey for the first time there.
Mm.
And my first big break in entertainment came from that restaurant. It worked out exactly how I had envisioned it, but it was knowing how to treat people when you encountered them. I didn't have a headshot in my back pocket. I didn't have
Mm.
my resume ready to whip out on them. I got to know them as a person. And when I was waiting tables, it felt like you were coming into my home, not like here I am waiting tables, I'm
Right.
not really doing what I want to do. I really took pride in waiting tables. I really, like if you came in and it was a special occasion, I was going to make sure you felt special. And so I got the VIPs, and that's how I was able to get on.
From your personality. Yeah,
Well, just
really though.
investing in them,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
really seeing them and not going in for, what I was there for. Like we
Because
all
people can
need
pick
each
that
other.
up.
Yeah, they
Right.
can.
Mm-hmm.
They
They can pick that
can.
up.
And if you're not approaching from a genuine level, they can sense that. So,
So how did you get on the conversation about what it is that you really wanted to talk about?
yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I would get all the VIPs, and so and I was producing a lot of short films out of the American Film Institute at the time. Another strategic move that I was making, because when I was waiting tables there, one of the waitresses said, I know you have, this great reel from Atlanta, but it really doesn't matter out here. You have to show LA what you can do in this market. And
Mm.
one of the best ways to do that is, get on to these student films and get to know these filmmakers as they're up and coming. And so I was like, okay, what are the film schools here? And so she was like the American Film Institute, the Hollywood, film school. And so I just started going around putting up my headshots in these places. And long story short, got on there. That's a whole other story.
Mm.
But within the restaurant, I was, in full fledged producing out of these student films. Let's just say I went from being in front of the camera to finding my calling behind the camera. So I was doing that when this gentleman came in and he said, hey, he hobbled up on crutches, and I was doing the opening side work, fresh coming off of set from the American Film Institute, really tired, but getting everything set up. And we only allowed people in there to have dinner. You couldn't come in there to have cocktails. You had to come in there and spend some money. It was a
Mm-hmm.
fine dining, but we had plenty of nice places for you to, have cocktails. So he comes hobbling up and said, hey, I'm going to be staying in this hotel for 2 weeks. Do you mind if I come in here and have business drinks? And I was like, well, you can come in here and have dinner, but let me show you where you can have drinks. And he was like, no, I want to come here. And so I see him on crutches, and I said, you know what? Okay, no problem. I'll take care of you. And if I'm not here, just tell them that DM said it's okay for you to come
Mm.
in. And so he was like, okay. So he would have his meetings. And even though like a lot of people would eavesdrop, I just can't do it. I have so
Mm-hmm.
much respect for people's privacy that I just couldn't like
Mm-hmm.
eavesdrop on like I would intentionally tune out. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really didn't know what he did for a living. But in this 2 week period, I got to know him and his wife. And
Mm.
so I was closing up the restaurant one night, and I had to be on set at 4 a.m. And at this time, it's like 1. And I see him, he comes hobbling up, and I'm like, no, I got to close the restaurant. And he says, do you mind if I have, just a quick appetizer and a drink? I won't be long. And I
Mm.
said, sure, come in, if you don't mind me doing my side work as you're doing this. And he says, no, no, not at all. And he had pages in his hand. And he said, do you mind giving these a read for me? And I
Mm.
said, oh, you're a writer.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, okay, you're a writer. And he said something like that. And I said, okay. And so he says, do you mind giving these a read for me? And so I said, all right. So I took it to the back, gave it a read. And I was really surprised that like this, pale skinned, blue eyed guy was really deep into this urban world. And I
Mm.
bought it. I bought it. It didn't pretend like it was in this world. It,
Mm-hmm.
it really felt like he had a finger on the pulse of this world. But I had some notes, so I
Mm-hmm.
came out, gave him my thoughts. And he says, you really know your way around the script. If you ever need anything, give me a call. And I was like, okay, great. So he gives me his card, and it says Charles Chick Egley, executive producer, Dark Angel.
Mm.
I'm like, oh my gosh. I had a friend on the show. So I called him up and said, hey, do you know this guy? And he says, listen, I don't call very many. And his name is Ollie Me Ballard. He's on, I'll think of the series he's on right now. Queen of the South. He's on Queen of the South right now. Ollie Me Ballard. But he said at the time he was on Dark Angels, he said, if that guy, I don't call very many people in Hollywood friend, but if that guy says he's got your back, he really has your back. And
Mm.
it was true. He was going to give me a referral for Steve Harvey because Steve Harvey had taken interest in me at the time and was going to put me on one of his shows as a producer. And before that opportunity went through with Steve Harvey, he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity to work on a TV show, and I'd love to have you join me." And that TV
Mm.
show was The Shield. And so, and so that's how I was able to stop waiting tables and step into my calling as his writing assistant. And that script was straight out of Compton. It was the first version of that.
Wow,
So
what a
that's how
great
long it's
story.
that's how long that script has been around. And he had since stepped off of the project and it went on, to other capable people. But yeah, that was my first like crack at Hollywood because from me being an actress, I'd studied story, I know
Hmm.
character development
Hmm.
and all of that. So I'd done so much work that, I could break down a script. And so he
Hmm.
loved my perspective. And so we rolled really deep for years as me being his writer's assistant on many projects in addition to The Shield.
Well, now, as we talk about the shoot, you did something amazing that we're going to get to in a moment that she did on Clubhouse. Because now, I mean, she's a Clubhouse whiz now, y'all. She's doing big things. She actually did a Shield reunion with the
Yeah,
cast and the crew, where they maxed out on Clubhouse. Okay, maxed out on
yeah,
Clubhouse with the
it's
whole cast
great.
and crew, Michael Chiklis. And so you were very instrumental in that. So we're going to get to that because I think that's really great for all those
Thank
that were
you.
Shield lovers on
Yeah.
there. So you mentioned how, okay, now you're at the Shield, and then
Hmm.
you mentioned Steve Harvey was interested in you.
Yeah.
So that there's a difference between interest. How did he grab you? How did you end up
Yeah. Okay.
working for
So
him?
so after working multiple amazing seasons on The Shield, an
Hmm.
amazing opportunity, another one came up for me to produce at this studio, Castle Studios in Los Angeles. And so I jumped into that opportunity. And then soon after that, one came up for me working at ABC Television Network, where I stayed for almost 8 years. It was 7 years, 7.5. And I sat in on many pitches. And that's how, I started working on Shark Tank in
Hmm.
development from the network end of things because I sat in on that pitch and was able to work alongside my boss at the time, Corey Henson, so be a part of every
Hmm.
meeting. That show was
Hmm.
actually going to get canceled in the first season. It was strategically placed on a Friday to where it's not up against much competition and it always won the night. And then it was able to grow and build an audience from there, but almost got canceled after the first season.
Mm.
But I was there and Steve Harvey had come in to pitch. And when he came in to pitch, they liked the way I handled myself in the room. And their president at the time reached back out and said, "Hey, we're looking for, director of development. Are you interested? Let's meet. Let's talk." And we did, but at the time, I didn't want to leave the network. Like,
Mm.
it's tough out there being on the seller side, and so it felt good being on the buyer side.
Hmm.
And so I didn't want to leave the network, and I told them that. But they came back about 6 weeks later and said that they had done a search, but they really landed back with me. And so we had another conversation, and I said, "All right, I'll take the lead." And I did.
So now we're going to get to Steve because he had umpteen shows, right? I mean,
Yep.
Steve, you talking
Oh
about?
yeah.
So he was almost on every network. Steve everywhere. I mean, we just watched him on what was a Sunday night for
Versus.
the verses,
Oh my goodness, the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and
and
Fire.
Earth,
That was
Wind, and Fire.
incredible. Oh my gosh.
So Steve Harvey, the Celebrity Family Feud. Okay, Family Feud. Think like a man.
Yeah.
So how did you work with him? In what capacity?
Well, I was his director of development and I also ran
Mhm.
day-to-day operations. So anything that people wanted to get to Steve, any show he was a part of, I was the one in the lab working on it from the development end. Let's just take little big shots, for
Mhm.
instance,
Mhm.
from casting, all the way to production and through post and being in the edit bay with Warner Brothers Television, Brooke Carson
Mhm.
and Mike Darnell. Um, just, overseeing the creative and making sure that they understood the brand, because, Steve is, he's a whole show in himself, and he speaks a whole language
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
you have to really understand or be from the hood to like really get. And I had to, so I was there also, explaining his jokes sometimes, so that they would make it into the cut, not, get cut out because they weren't understood. So, yeah, they're developing things, and, taking meetings, running day to day. It was just, yeah, when he was everywhere, I was there. I was also there when the Miss Universe mishap happened, standing right there. So, yeah, I've
So
seen it
you were the
all.
girl. You were the girl. So okay. So tell us, how did you feel about that, especially being right there?
Oh, I
Were
was
you
right there.
horrified? Were you horrified?
We all were horrified. We
Okay.
all were horrified. And let me
Mm-hmm.
just clarify a couple of things. Like, people, I heard things like, Steve wasn't at rehearsal. Steve was the first person at rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
He did not play around with that. He understood the importance of winning that crown, and what that meant, and
Mm-hmm.
how, those women dedicate their entire lives, to that journey, and becoming Miss Universe. So he didn't take it lightly. So he showed up. They had a very small monitor for him to read, and had even offered to get a bigger one because he was struggling to see. He didn't want to put the production out, so he worked with it. Everything went really smooth up until the very end. And it
Mm-hmm.
really just boiled down to positioning of how they had things laid out on the card. I don't know if you saw the graphic that went out, but if you could see, like, the winner was at the bottom. Steve has really big hands. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we would rehearse everything but the announcement of the winner. So he was there for all of those rehearsals, but they didn't run through that final part, at least when I was there. And I think they may have saved that for day of. So I think, that's where things went
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but it wasn't like, he wasn't doing his part or someone screwed up. It was just really how things were laid out on that card. I hate that it went on for so long, and the
Mm-hmm.
crown went on and all of that. Like, it was really tough. That was tough.
I bet it
Yeah.
was, but it sounds like you working with him and just to be able to see your work on television. How does it feel to know that you had a hand from the beginning to end, and then to see the success on television when it's recognized?
That was I'll take it again with Little Big Shots, because that's where I had the biggest hand in
Mm-hmm.
development. And some things he had going prior to me being there, like Family Feud, which ended up getting him Celebrity Family Feud. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what made Steve so hot, because he took a show that was just like decades old, and
Mm-hmm.
it was killing it in the ratings, and it wasn't prime time, but it was getting like prime time numbers. And so anytime you can get ratings like that, it gets the network's attention. So he was already hot and going with Family Feud, and, Celebrity Family Feud came after that. What my job is for his existing shows was to make sure that they just stayed on brand creatively, while sourcing and looking for new shows for Steve to do. So when you saw him coming out with different shows and all of that, like, that's what I would be in the lab doing, sourcing out like the right projects for him, making sure that he wasn't overly saturated.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we were working on towards the end was not putting him in front of the camera, but moving him behind the camera, and having him be the executive producer, and have other people assume the hosting responsibilities, because I think at one point he had 8 shows going. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was hot. He was
yeah,
on fire. Now
yeah,
you brokered some deals for, like, even Erin Brockovich. What deal
yeah,
did you broker for her?
yeah. Her first endorsement for a water purifier,
Hmm.
and if you can imagine, everyone's coming at her, or had come at her, because she's like the biggest water advocate in the world.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
think of
Mm-hmm.
the movie and what she
Yep.
did for those people of that city, in California, as a person that knew nothing about law, but she cared about people, and she dug in, and she exposed what had happened to them, and how the water was contaminated. And so she knows good, clean water, and she didn't just endorse anyone's product. So, one of my clients, they're called Ideal Living, and they're $100 million marketing and product company. And they have the most amazing products, all geared towards an ideal way of living. So whether it's, the top of the line air purifiers, water purifiers, to organic ingestibles, they're just really, really good. And so what I do is I pair talent up with their product. And so they had this water purifier that they had been working on for years, and they were ready to launch it and wanted Aaron Brockovich. Well, they wanted like the perfect spokesperson. And I said, you should get Aaron Brockovich. And they had been trying to get her for years and wasn't able to. But I had worked with, Aaron had pitched me when I was at ABC, because she had a show, which she has one on the air now that Katie Segal is leading in, that's coming on ABC. But she had pitched me, so I had a somewhat of a relationship with her. And then I knew her agent. And so I reached out to them. I also reached out to her attorney. And then within 2 weeks, I had her at the table. And within several months, we had closed a very lucrative deal for her.
Okay, look at you, girl. You closing deals. Okay.
Yeah, it was
getting
nice.
checks and all of that. I was going to tell you, I forgot to tell you, I'm not sure if I did or not. I remember the restaurant that you and I had gone to.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I still remember their guacamole. Do you know, I
Ooh,
was watching
yes.
a reality show, and I said, that's the restaurant that Donna and I was at. I was like,
Yep.
okay. Oh, okay. People know I'm like that, huh?
Yeah, they know I'm like that. Yeah, really good drinks in Neho and Studio City.
Yeah, but that I still think about that guacamole to
It's
this
so
day.
good. And those drinks.
Oh, very
They're
good.
really good drinks, really good
Yeah.
margaritas.
Yeah, we got to go back there.
Yes,
when
totally.
everything open back up.
Absolutely. You
But
bet.
okay, so you brokered deals with Steve Harvey. What was the deal that you broke for Steve Harvey? Was that Little Big Shots?
No.
No.
With his production company, East 112th Street
Mm-hmm.
Productions, I was the creative, and he had a separate person dealing with the money, the contracts, the negotiations, and all of that. But with Steve Harvey, I also brokered some deals through my client's Ideal Living, so still working to close some of those, but yeah.
So you be up in there in Hollywood closing deals. When somebody look for somebody, you the girl.
Yeah.
I know
Actually,
that's
I
right.
have a really good eye for talent. So, that's one of the things that I did at ABC too within my department is, source out new talent and introduce them to the fold. A lot of talent that I recommended made it on to some of the shows, from Extreme Makeover, Home
Mm-hmm.
Edition, because those are castings too, to Dancing with the Stars, to the award shows, because it was a very collaborative community, there within that department. So if we took on a new show and it was being cast, they love to get the opinions of everyone. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would always like have a list ready of talent. And so, yeah, I have a pretty good eye for that. And we'll be doing a lot more. I can't talk about it now, perhaps next week.
Okay.
But yeah, I just picked up the most amazing client, and we're going to be doing some amazing things with talent. So
So
very exciting.
speaking, so you say you have a good eye for talent. So when you look
Yeah.
for talent, what is that thing? People say they have to have the it factor. So what
Mhm.
is it that you look for?
You just know it when you see it,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it comes to you in the form of them being very seasoned and have done all the work, excuse me, and have studied up and all of that. And that's how I prefer them to come, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just too much happening. And I need you to understand just the basic fundamentals of the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also come across talent who had no clue what they were doing, no idea, and got cast in my project that was like the closest thing, nearest
Mm.
and dearest thing to me. It was like my baby. I had friends auditioning, family auditioning, and this person who was clueless about the whole process got the role because she had the it factor
Mm-hmm.
for that particular project.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it's like. That's what I tell people: bring your whole self to it, because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they don't know, they have an idea,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't really know until you show them. A casting director doesn't really know what they're looking for until you show them. And then
Mm-hmm.
once they put the breakdown out that they're looking for a Black girl, dark hair with a beret, and then they see 100 of you, they get tired of that image.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to shake it up
Right.
and be the odd man out and give them something different. Go with your gut. I booked a lot of things in front of the camera, going with my gut and just bringing my full and complete self to it, because there's only
Mm-hmm.
one me, there's only
Right.
one you.
Right.
And the more fully you live in that, the more people can recognize your it factor.
And see, and I love it. Growing up, I never forget when people would say that I had it. I remember I was on a movie set, and the
Hmm.
lady who was over wardrobe, and she said, "You have the it factor." And I didn't know what that was. I was only 15 years old, and I was just an extra. And I'll never forget the outfit that she put on me. It was hideous, but I just wore. But I wore the
Uh-huh.
outfit. But that was my first time ever hearing that. And I remember leaving and asking somebody, what is the it factor?
Yeah,
And they just
yeah,
laughed because I guess it was an innocent thing. I did not know that was a good thing. So I never knew
yeah,
what that it thing actually was. So when you recognize it, so since you love doing
yeah.
shows and you've done plenty of them, you've worked on them, ABC, Steve Harvey, what are some of the elements that make up a successful show?
One that really like gets the tone of the world at the
Mm-hmm.
time. You know, when we were looking for shows at ABC or when I was with Steve, um, you pay attention to what the people want. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
keep your finger on the pulse. You
Mm-hmm.
have to read the trades. You have to be glued to the news. You have to know what's going on in the world
Mm-hmm.
so that you can address it, because people are looking for answers. And a lot of times they look for them in entertainment. They
Mm-hmm.
also look for escapism.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something too heavy going on in the world, then you might see a lot of comedy because
Mm-hmm.
people just want to laugh.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
what did I do during the pandemic? I sought music. I
Mm-hmm.
danced.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
the music would stop, I would find myself crying
Mm-hmm.
because darkness was all around me, bleakness, uncertainty all around me. But the one sure thing, music,
Mm-hmm. That's
music.
good. That's good.
Yeah. Mhm.
So for those people who are watching, because I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to watch this and they probably want to be an actor, actress, writer, but you were talking about the pitch process.
Mhm.
So when someone comes to you to pitch, because you probably were the girl that they wanted to pitch to, how do I get my show on ABC? What is it that you're looking for? So when I come to you, what are you expecting in your pitch process?
Well, let me just say in a pitch, so many decisions, so many
Mm-hmm.
people are involved in that process.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's myself and people much bigger and more, you know, with more influence than me, um, in there. So it could range from anywhere from myself and, you know, vice presidents. If they
Mm.
have relationships with the people who are coming in, then you'll get like the senior vice presidents, EVPs in there. And if you're like J Lo or Bruno Mars or someone coming in, then you'll get the president of entertainment,
Mm.
in there. And so that's when you know like it's something that the network really needs.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes it's competitive against another network, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because you know we're always paying attention to what's hot, what's happening for other networks, and what's rating for them,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're looking for our version of that, but better with you know the brand stamp on it.
Right.
And so when those elements come together, then that's when you'll know how good your pitch is depending on who shows up in the room. So, you know, you'll know if they're really, really interested, but it has to speak to what's going on in the world. But more importantly, it has to speak to what that network is looking for. If you come in and you pitch a show and we already have something like that, which
Mm-hmm.
happened all the time, it's like, aren't you even watching our network? We already
Mm-hmm.
have that show. We
Right.
would have
Right.
someone try and pitch us The Bachelor. I mean, you can't, it doesn't get better than what we were already doing
Right.
with that franchise. So why would you come and pitch us that type of show,
Mm-hmm.
without really being that different creatively in beats, you know? So you have to really know what that network is looking for, pay attention to their schedule, tell them what they need. Like every month they'll
Mm.
send out a mandate, agents will call in, and say, hey, what are you guys looking for? And then they feed that to their writers, producers, actors. And then that's how pitches come into us.
Mm.
But there have been plenty of times where we would give out a mandate and we're like, we don't even think we want that anymore. Meanwhile, everyone's prepping pitches to come in and give, and pitch this to
Right,
us,
right, right.
So it's just for you to tell us what we want. You be the talent that we're looking for. You tell us that this is the best show. And let me tell you, everyone says that their show is the best show. Everyone says this is the greatest thing.
Right.
Show us.
Mm.
Show us how lined up to the shows that we have on the schedule, how it fits in, even to what night you see it on. You don't have to
Mm.
go into that much detail, but I do, because I know that that's something that their programmers look for. Like if they pick up a show, the programmers have to be part of that conversation once it's purchased. Like, where is it going to go on the schedule?
Right.
And it's this big puzzle that's only privy to like the programmer, a few from his team, the president of entertainment, and maybe a few key department people. But they're looking at that because that also tells you what's going to get canceled, what they're moving around, and what the new shows they're plugging in and what's coming out. So there's a lot that goes into it. So just make sure that it's on brand with the network and that you're coming in with people that can help you pull it off, because they're looking. It's not just the great idea. It's not just the great idea. It's if we give you this money, will the package, the people that you have attached, mitigate the risk for us investing in you? We're not going to give it to someone new because you think this is a great show or we think it's a great show. Do you have a team behind you that can pull it off and protect the money and bring in the ratings and make everyone happy because you know what you're doing creatively and know how to steer the ship? So a lot of elements goes into us picking up a show, whether it's, it doesn't matter whether it's good. Can you pull it off? And can you mitigate the risk?
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. You know what I mean? 'Cause there
Yeah.
is so much because there's money that's involved. Like you say, do you have a team to pull this off if we
Oh, yeah.
invest in you? Wow, I didn't realize. I knew there was a lot, but I didn't know what went behind it.
Yeah. I
I
mean, you have to
just
think about this too. Like like if you came in and pitched me a TV show and then I go back to my boss who couldn't make it in the room because she's being pulled in a million different directions, and I go
Mhm.
back to her and say, I just heard this great pitch. And then she hears it and she's like, DM, that's not even on brand. We're not looking for anything like that. That's crap. Then that's judged on me. Like, so I start losing credibility on
Right.
knowing what's good for the brand. So you have to bring me something that I'm proud to pitch up
Hmm.
and make it easy. Give me something visual to watch, like a sizzle link, a creative presentation deck. If you're a writer, possibly a script, or they may, pay you to write one if you do a
Hmm.
really good treatment. I mainly work in unscripted, so I don't know how those deals with scripted go. Although
Hmm.
I'm really good at scripted, I don't work on the deal portions of those. But yeah, so it's a lot that goes into selling a show.
One thing I like that you did something I think is great that Clubhouse really, really needed. You brought a level of experience and professionalism and knowledge to
Mhm.
Clubhouse.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And it gives those up and coming writers, actors, a place to be able to talk, have a voice. And for those that are in the industry to share their experiences and also be able to talk to others in the industry, especially during this time of COVID, something that's on, I don't want to say social media, but I guess Clubhouse is kind of like social media. But
Mhm.
I was in there today and there was a
Yes, you were.
gentleman who called in from Oakland. And he touched my had me tearing up at my desk because he was talking about how he was in the Black Panthers as
Yeah.
of yesterday. I guess he quit last night. But it gave him a
Yeah.
place to be able to talk and to get that out and to really show his humanity. Like he said, he's never
Hmm.
cried like that before, but he
Right.
was able to do that in Clubhouse. The young lady who wrote for
Hmm.
Girlfriends, where she
Yeah.
was able to talk and and share her story. So there was I was going to say a wealth of experience in the room,
Yeah.
all different levels.
Hmm.
And but I want to talk about what you did with the Shield. That people were able to go and to be able to listen to those conversations. How did this start? Donna-Marie Presents. Where did the idea come from?
Well, again, when I went to work on the show, the TV show, The Shield, that was on
Mhm.
FX, we became a family. You know, that show was groundbreaking on so many levels. It was the first big show out of FX. It really solidified the network, won Emmys out the gate, and just all kinds of praise. So, um, we just really all formed a really tight bond and have stayed in touch throughout the years. And so one of the writer showrunners that I stay in touch with the most is Glenn Mazzara. Not only is he just a gifted writer and showrunner, but he's an amazing activist and an even better friend. He's just been there for me through so many times throughout my career, just advice, guidance, different things that I'm doing creatively. I can always count on him to, give it an eye or give me some advice. So when I got on Clubhouse, it was the same as you said. Like, I was happy to bring experience to it because there were some people who were kind of struggling. They're bringing
Mhm.
what knowledge that they could, but it wasn't as full as it could be. Let's just
Right.
say. And so I just said, there's a lot of people in search of the answer, and I have a lot of them. So let me share. And Glenn Mazzara is the same way. Like, he loves to teach, he loves to share his journey, he loves to educate people and bring them up. And so I hit him and was like, Glenn, I think this is a great medium for you. You should consider Clubhouse. He had never heard of it. So as we were talking about it, I said, wouldn't it be a cool thing to bring the Shield to Clubhouse and have us all reunite almost 20 years later?
Mhm.
And he said, yeah, that would be really cool. And then he said, I'll reach out to Kurt Sutter, who had gone on to write Sons of Anarchy and The Mayans. And he's married to Katie Segal, who's playing Aaron Brockovich in the ABC series now. And then Scott Rosenbaum, who did Chuck for NBC and V for ABC and Queen of the South as well.
Mhm.
And then I said, okay, I'll reach out to Sean Ryan, which, he created the show.
Mhm.
He's also running SWAT. So I reached out to Sean Ryan, Michael Chiklis, CCH Pounder, Benito
Mhm.
Martinez, Catherine Dent. Like, I had 20 plus cast members there. It was amazing. No one had really heard of Clubhouse, but they were all game. I didn't get much resistance from
Okay.
anyone. Yeah, they were all like, you know what? Let me just go along for the ride. They trusted me to get them through this experience. I said, I promise you, you will love it. It'll take about 2 hours, but you'll probably be in there for 4. The room went on for 5.5 hours. We got over 3 million impressions. We had a nice audience. It was great.
So with that, what's the next reunion that you would like to do? When you saw the success of that one, is there another reunion you would like to do?
Yeah, it's actually well, let me not say reunion, but there's some events. There's a couple of events that are in the works right now.
Mm.
Don't want to put them out there yet,
Okay. All right. All
but I
right.
promise you that they will be hot. Because what Donna-Marie presents is, since I have had amazing experiences and opportunities in the
Mhm.
business, and I see that there's a need to kind of take people behind the scenes and give them a peek at how, like, the game really goes down,
Right.
but from a human perspective, not from a, hey, look at me, I've done all these great things, but it's like, I've had these amazing experiences. This is where I fell down. This is where I learned to get back up. And I have people like Glenn Mazzara to help me share in those stories. But so it'll be everyone from, like, entertainers, musicians, actresses, that have all had amazing journeys, and they'll come and share it in, like, a virtual fireside chat on Clubhouse via Donna-Marie Presents. So yeah, it's
So
it's a
tell
division of my production company,
okay.
Undeniable Films.
So I want you to tell me about a time where you fell down and got back up.
Ooh, gosh, I have to really think about what experience, but I'll tell you one where I was just knocked backwards and just didn't know
Mm.
if I could get back up. And that was when I lost my mom. That's how
Mm.
you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
She was my biggest motivator. She was my biggest reason why.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like for a moment that if I didn't have her there to
Mm-hmm.
encourage me, to guide me, to, be my biggest cheerleader, that I wouldn't know how to get back up from falling so hard after she died so unexpectedly. And what I did was I just stepped away from entertainment because as much as I love it and there's the glitz and glamour of it, there's a very dark side to it too. And I just couldn't handle so much darkness all at
Mm-hmm.
once.
Mm-hmm.
So I went deep off into the world of philanthropy and I started a nonprofit in my mom's honor.
Mm-hmm.
She would always sign off on things as Love Ma, whether she was sending you a text message or giving you a birthday card or cussing you out, whatever. It didn't matter. She would always sign off with Love Ma. So, I named the foundation Love Ma, and I just set out to take all of that pain and that just feeling of just lost and not knowing which direction to go. And I turned my pain into purpose. And so then I slowly worked in the entertainment side and want to work with kids to like really help them find their creative voice and vision through the
Mm-hmm.
arts and show them different opportunities that I didn't even know existed when I came
Mm-hmm.
up. I didn't know that you could work at a broadcast network. I didn't know that
Mm.
you could work on a TV show and that there were a million different positions within that you could work. I had
Mm.
no idea. And so I have enough friends who have TV shows that I can, find groups of kids, take them to set, have them sit in Video Village, get inspired, see how TV shows come together, teach them how to write, teach them how to direct, teach them how to produce. And so that's how I was able to get back up. But I wasn't
Mm.
ready to step back over into entertainment fully, not really until I would say during the pandemic, because again, I got inspired by what people were doing online. Starting out with D Nice, and
Mm-hmm.
then other DJs that came from that, Brian Michael Cox. I would just get lost in that, and then I started creating virtual shows, and that amazing audience would support those shows. And then I eventually took it to Clubhouse, and so that's why I'm in the virtual space. It's all from the pandemic and
Right.
just figuring out how to pivot when everything else is shutting down. How do you continue to get your voice out? How do you continue to live and thrive within your dreams and in your passion? You have to figure it out. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times it's not going to be already built for you. You have to blaze that trail. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I'm trying to do in Clubhouse. It's still in its beta form. It hasn't even gone public yet.
Right. Right.
It's only for iPhone
Mm-hmm.
users right now, but in May, it'll be available for Android users. And I'm happy about it because I'm ready
Mm.
for more
It's
people to
about to
come
blow up.
in. Well, I want to share more. I want to,
Mm-hmm.
more people who are looking for the answer that just can't get it. We
Right.
had a guy from, I forget what part of Africa, but he had been trying to get in front of Hollywood executives for 25 years. And there he was in Clubhouse in front of financiers, agents, attorneys, network executives, studio
Mm-hmm.
executives,
Mm-hmm.
and we all put a village around him and we're helping him. So it's a great space to help people, but it's also been a great space for Black creatives and particularly to find your niche and really build your audience. From there, a lot of us are thriving in that space. So it's been really good to see and be a part of.
And I made some great connections in a Clubhouse myself.
Yeah.
And I do believe I made a really good life saving connection while I was in there. Ended up meeting a physician. She was an MD, and I had her speak in my Black Sisters Making Friends group. And we were talking about COVID-19. I did a thing called Ask the Doctor. So if you had questions about the
Mm.
vaccine, if you had questions about COVID-19, you can ask her. Who would have known that 2 weeks later I was going to contract COVID-19? So I ended up having a doctor who could basically almost care less about my health. I thank God for her because I could barely talk. So I was able to call her on the phone. She was able to speak to the doctor. He didn't want to do a CT scan or anything, he didn't want to do another one. So she said, I'm going to send you some things that I need him to do for you. So the next day, God sent a whole nother doctor. And so he came to see me and I gave him the list that my girlfriend, who's an MD, said that he should do for me. So he looked at it very humble. He said, okay, I'll do everything that she said on the list. And that's what helped to save my life. She wanted
Oh my
another CT scan because
goodness.
it was in that CT scan that he was able to see that my lungs were dying. I had two pneumonias. I had an infection. And
Mm.
so if he would not have done that CT scan, I would have ended up dying in that hospital. But thank God for her. And so he
Oh
did
my
everything he could
God.
to save my life. And I met her in Clubhouse.
Oh my God. That that's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I didn't realize you had COVID. So I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
that you got through that. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that you had people around you that could help you get through it and help you get the right things to your doctor because to me it seems like they get on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
you
He was
know?
on autopilot. Definitely.
Yeah, they get on autopilot and you have to slow them down, you know, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that you made that connection. How do you feel now?
Oh, I feel great now. It's a blessing. It's a blessing,
Wow.
as I say, to be in the land of the living. I got it from when I went to the hospital with my daughter when she went to have her baby. So both of us contracted it in the hospital.
Oh my
And so we came home and
gosh.
ended up giving it to the entire household. So everybody in the house ended up actually getting it. But it was me that was hit the hardest. And so the
Oh my
doctor
God.
that I ended up having, he was absolutely amazing. Although I was on two IVs and a lot of medication, but he did everything that he absolutely could. So
Oh
just
my
for me to be here is
goodness.
a miracle. So I don't mind sharing the story of the glory of God and what he did for me because many people didn't make it.
Oh my
And I'm just glad
goodness.
that I was one of the ones who did. So I'm thankful to be able to share
Me too.
my story. So
Absolutely.
so
Oh my
God
gosh. I
is
think
good.
about your children and your husband. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh. I'm glad you made it through.
Thank you, thank you, and I'm glad you was able to share about the foundation that you did for your mom because I was definitely going to talk to you about that. So I'm glad you were able to touch on that. I wanted to say thank you so
Mm.
much for joining me on the show. Do you have anything that you would like to tell the audience that you have coming up? What is the name of your Clubhouse group so they can come? And if for the iPhone users that are watching right now, and for those who are on Android in May who will be able to join, what is the name of your Clubhouse group?
Okay, the name of my clubhouse is called Donna-Marie Presents. You can find me on social media, IG, Twitter, by the handle DM's Place. It's for Donna-Marie, so
Mm-hmm.
DMS Place, DM's Place. And my foundation, my nonprofit is lovema.org. Lovemafoundation.org. I'm sorry, lovemafoundation.org. But in Clubhouse, yeah, I have a lot of great events coming up. I did set up some scripted projects around town, so those are going to pop any day now. I have an
Oh.
EGOT attachment to one of them, so I'm very
Ooh.
excited about that. But just can't talk about it. So
Hmm.
just stay tuned. Follow me on social media, and as things unfold, I will let you guys know. But Lady Charlemagne, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you. And keep up
Absolutely.
the great work. Keep up the great
Ah!
work. You've been doing so well. I love watching your interviews. You always have great guests. So it's just been, I was honored when you asked me to come on. So it's like, wow, she
Absolutely.
has such great guests. What does she want me on there?
Well,
What does
I
she want
love
me on there
you.
for?
And we had a great connection with our moms, and it's so nice
Yeah.
that you started the foundation, Love Ma. I started a beauty business after my mother, which her name is Mary Ann, and the beauty business is Mary and Barry's Beauty. So I make premium body butter, and it's all the smells that my mom likes. So, but it's just so nice how
Oh my
God made that
gosh.
connection, and just with the both of us, and everybody. It's
Yeah.
amazing how she and I actually connected. We connected actually in the worst way.
Hmm.
We connected
Yep.
in the worst way. And she and I were the same age. I think our birthdays are a month apart, wedding anniversaries. I mean, just how God just did everything. And I just really
Yeah.
appreciate you for just being just a dear friend. So thank you so much.
I mean, I appreciate you just seeing me, seeing me and my pain after just losing my mom. You said the right things. You knew exactly how I was feeling. And because you knew how I was feeling, it helped get me through that time because someone understood. So I appreciate you. And I encourage people to do that. Reach
Mhm.
out, even if it's to a stranger, reach out. You never know if you could be their one saving grace and Lady Charmaine, you were that for me. So thank you so
Oh,
much. I appreciate you.
you are
Keep
so
kicking it. You are
welcome.
doing so well. I'm cheering from the sidelines from you for you.
Well, you are so welcome. And I'm just so grateful to know that you are my friend and to see what you're doing in Clubhouse. And I want to tell everybody before we go, it's okay to step out and do something different, do something new. And as I
Mhm.
always say, just do it afraid. You have no idea. Because even if you're the person to blaze the trail, you're blazing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason why no one should not have a platform, because you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have Clubhouse. So if you don't
Yeah.
want anybody to see you, go to Clubhouse and talk about it.
So
You can
true.
you can talk in your pajamas, okay?
Yep.
So you don't have to
Absolutely.
worry. But we have no reason. God has taken away all of our excuses. Tomorrow is not promised. So why don't you do it today? Because all you have is today. That's it. Tomorrow never comes. If you never notice, it never comes. 12
Mm.
o'clock tonight, you're going to still be in today.
Mm. Mm.
So
Wow, that's
just do
deep.
it today,
I
because that
love
is
it.
all you have. So again, Miss
Wow.
Donna, thank you so much for definitely coming on the show. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you. And
Thank you
ladies and
again.
gentlemen, Donna-Marie Reid.
Thank you guys for watching.